Hello, this is Dr. Bob Gray Sr. Welcome to Ministry Moments. You can subscribe. I hope you will. We're almost close to 500. So you go ahead and subscribe and help us to hit that. You want to? There'll be a little something extra in the mail for you. But Ministry Moments YouTube, Bob Gray Sr., or Ministry Moments, your favorite podcast provider. You can go there or go to solvechurchproblems.com. You can go there and subscribe, and it's no sermon. You're not going to get a sermon every week. You're just going to get some very practical applications to the ministry, both to laymen and leaders in the local church. And so I hope you'll join me every week. Okay, today we're going to talk about ministry moment mistakes. Ministry moments mistakes. There are the faculty, finances, and facilities are what I've, for 51 years, I've told everybody those are vetoes. If you don't have the faculty, you don't have the finances, you don't have the facilities, that's going to veto any project that you have, anything that you want to do. And having a strong Sunday school base like this, broader the base, the bigger the building. Well, the same thing is true with finances. If you do your finances right, build a strong base, then it'll support what it is you're wanting to do for God. So let me give you some things that I've noticed through the years in helping pastors and Soul Winning Clinic, 3 decades of teaching at the Soul Winning Clinic. And if you don't have my church manual, get a hold of Berean Publications and order it. It's really, it covers just about everything, and you ought to get it. Okay, ministry, money, mistakes. I'm hiccuping. What's the matter? I haven't been drinking lately. Here we go. Number 1, no voted on church budget. Your authority to do what you're doing is based on what the church gives you. And so you annually ought to have a vote on a budget. That's your, gives you the right to do as an administrator, as a bishop, that part of leading, gives you a right to be able to spend money, not your money, it's God's money. And God's people voted on a budget, and it ought to be, we had a 100 series, 200 series, 300 series. We were well organized when it comes to not this computer. You're computerized now, and it just does everything for you. But I'm going to give you some basic tenets here, maybe it'll be of help. Well, that was a big word, wasn't it? Number 1, no voted on church budget. Number 2, a budget based on projections. Your budget ought to be exactly what came in last year. No projections. I know you're going to be running 1,000 in 2 years. I understand all that. And you get over into the money aspect of it. If you're not careful, you get yourself in serious trouble. You can't live in a fantasy world. You have to live in a reality. So number 1, no voted on church budget. That'll get you into trouble. Number 2, budget based on projection. Don't project. Oh, we're running 2,000 in offerings. I believe we'll double it next year. So let's vote in a budget of 4,000. No, you don't want to do that. Number 3, living on 100%. The church budget, living on 100%. You cannot live on 100%. We had a budget, it was voted on, and we, the financial lady and the ladies there, we decided that it'd be best if we lived on 80%. Now, I had the right to spend 100%, had that right. But we just knew that there was going to be 7 years of feast and 7 years of famine. We just knew it. So you can't live on 100%. So I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just saying what we did. We lived on 80%. Next, no qualified bookkeeper. You can't just because a guy's a deacon, let him handle the books. You can't do that. You're going to have a qualified bookkeeper. My lady, Mrs. Ayers, worked for the telephone company for 15 years in the financial world. And so she was well equipped to take care. She was the right-hand lady for Mrs. Stevens, Dr. Hiles' sister, who was the bursar for Hiles-Anderson College. So she worked hand in hand with Mrs. Stevens, well qualified. Now, I'm going to tell you, this is not going to be the most popular position in the church, because they're going to say, she's running this church. She ain't running this church. The budget's running the church. The church voted on it, and that's just the way that it is. So number 1, no voted on church budget. That's a mistake. Mistake number 2, a budget based on projection. Mistake number 3, living on 100%. I don't care if they voted you a budget of 2,000, live on 80% of it. They voted 1,000, then live on 800. You'll thank me if you'll do it. 7 years feast, 7 years famine, Joseph principle. Next, no qualified bookkeeper. You've got to have a qualified bookkeeper that knows what they're doing. Next, no surplus account. All the income that comes in must be put into a surplus account. That's where all the monies go. One place, the surplus account. Next, number 6, no operating account, no separate operating account. So you get the money coming in, you put it in the surplus account. Then you write a check for, let's say the $2,000 came in, your budget's $1,000. You don't write a check for $2,000 operating expense. Don't forget, you live on 80%. And then you write a check for $800 over. You follow what I'm saying? Or if you want to put the 1,000 in it, that's fine. You can do that. Just be very careful and understand you've got ups and downs, high days and low days. All right. So I said number 1, no voted on church budget. That's a mistake. Budget based on projection. That is a mistake. Base it on reality from the previous year. Living on 100% of income. That's a mistake. 80, 90, 75, whatever. Our missions was 75%. People, their emotions run and they pledge and faith promise and so on, and then you designate that money to missionaries and they don't give it, then you're going to be in trouble. Mistake number 4, no qualified bookkeeper. Mistake number 5, no surplus account where all the monies go into that each week. Number 6, no operating account. You've got to move from, okay, $2,000 is your budget, let's say, and $3,000 comes in. Then write a check for $2,000 to the operating account and leave the $1,000 in surplus. Why? Because one Sunday it's going to be below that, and you'll still be able to put that money in there. Before I brought on a Spanish pastor, for 6 months, I made sure there was money in there to take care of him. I didn't want to bring him in, and then 2 months later said, I'm sorry, the offers are down. I can't keep you. Well, the guy's done moved there. And if you salt that money away, first of all, you have the confidence that the money's going to be there for him. And then you can move him. You can pay moving expense and get him settled in. That makes sense to you. Mistakes. No voted on church budget. Budget based on projection. Don't do that. Reality from the year before. Living on 100%. That's a mistake. No qualified bookkeeper. That's a mistake. No surplus account. That's a mistake. No operating account, which is your budget each week. You don't have 2 separate accounts. Then when you have down days, you'll be okay. You'll be taken care of. Okay. All right. Number 7, not having 2 signatures on accounts, on checks. You can't just have one person sign. You've got to have 2 and it's very important you do that. Number 8, counting money during services. That's a mistake. The people that are counting the money are missing the preaching. They're missing the Sunday school. They're missing all of it. So we take the offering plates and put them right on that Lord's Supper table and put them in front of God and everybody, and then they would count after church. I know it's a little extra work, but the truth of the matter is you don't want these guys to backslide, and they've got to have you cannot be out of preaching and expect to stay right with God. You can't do it. We're all a bunch of wicked sinners, and a whole bunch of us ought to be in hell. And we need preachers need preaching. That's why I got sermon tape. And they're so good now because you can go on and get old-fashioned preaching regularly on the internet. It's easy to do. You can even get some of my sermons. It's mistakes. No voted on church budget. That's a mistake. Budget based on projection, not reality from the previous year. That's a mistake. Living on 100%, that's a mistake. No qualified bookkeeper, that's a mistake. No surplus account, or initially where all the monies go, that's a mistake. No operating account, weekly operating account, where you write a check and put it in there, that's a mistake if you don't have that. Not having 2 signatures on checks, that's a mistake. Gotta hurry, we're running out of time, aren't we? Counting money during services, that's a mistake. No odd number in the count room, that's a mistake. You want to have 3 or 5 or so on. And I always added a staff member. I had a staff lady that would go in with them. We had odd number counters, and you had to balance. You had to balance, and then everybody would sign that counting form in there. But I liked an odd number in there, and then I like to have a staff lady or staff member. It doesn't have to be a lady, but Okay. Mistake number 10, not rotating count room people. You got to rotate them. You can't keep the same. That's why I like rotating deacons. I don't want the same deacons on the deacon board. I'll rotate them off 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, depending on the votes that they get. And they stay off a year. They don't come back on. If I get me a rascal, now we never discussed people, but we had that. We used Brother Howe's method of just I veto with our heads bowed, eyes closed. We don't talk about people, but not rotating. We wait to get to McDonald's to talk about it. Okay, not rotating count room people. Mistake. Where am I? 8, 9, 10. Mistake number 11. I got it. I wrote. Okay, giving the checkbook to a layman. Don't give it to a layman. Don't give it to a deacon. Don't give it to the pastor. Don't give a checkbook. Don't give it to the pastor's wife. Don't give it to family members. Don't do that. Please don't do that. When I first came to Longview, they wanted me to sign off on everything, checking account, savings account, everything. I wouldn't do it. My name's not on anything. Not going to do it. Not going to do it. It's so easy to accuse somebody of something. And I'm just not going to do it. I didn't do it. And I suggest, and it's a mistake if you have your wife's on there, yours on there, kids are on there, and so on. I think it's a mistake. All right. Number 12, no purchase order system. Now, let me tell you what a purchase order system will do for you. You tell all of your vendors, nobody from this church can come to you to get something without a purchase order. That way, in our case, we penciled deduct whatever that was, so that I knew to the day, every day, I knew what the balance was in each account. And the bookkeeping department had Mrs. Ayers and 3 ladies that worked for her. Then that's how I made sure that I didn't go over. It's the purchase order system. It works. Number 13, no missions program. I know this is not in the Bible. It's grayology. But I like the idea. If I'm going to tithe and give an offering, then I think for missions, a church ought to tithe and give an offering. That's just me. That's just me. I'm not saying that's Bible. That's in my version of the Bible. But so no missions program. And I think it's very, very important. We gave $9.3 million to missions after 3 decades of pastoring there. So I didn't know a thing about Faith Promise. You may not like Faith Promise, but I'm just saying I didn't know a thing about missions really. And I just didn't. So I brought in a missionary from Japan. And he did a great job. And he helped me personally, and he helped our church. And the first year we gave $75,000, which a part of the budget they gave $52,000. But with Faith Promise we exceeded it, and it just every year just got better and better and better. And the last point, no reports. You've got to give out. It's a mistake. You've got to give out monthly reports, quarterly reports, and annual reports. And you have to. You've got to get those reports to the banker. Have a good relationship with. You need 2 banks. You need a small bank for small loans, immediate loans, and you need a big bank for big projects. So I had two banks. I remember George Moody at White Oak called Mrs. Ayers one day and said, "I'm worried. Is Dr. Gray mad at me?" She said, "Well, I don't think so." He said, she said, "Why do you feel it?" He said, "We hadn't borrowed any money lately." That was my small bank that I used. Sorry, Brother Moody, but it was a small bank used for. And she said to me, she laughed. She said, "I told him, oh, he'll be back, and he'll be back," and I was back. We're talking about ministry, money, mistakes. No vote on church budget. It's a mistake. Budget based on projection, not last year's reality. Mistake. Living on 100%, that's a mistake. No qualified bookkeeper, that's a mistake. No surplus account for it. All monies to go into to begin with, that's a mistake. No weekly operating budget, that's a mistake. Not having 2 signatures on checks, that's a mistake. Counting room open during services, that's a mistake. No odd number in the count room, that's a mistake. I need a staff man in there with them. Okay. Not rotating count room people, that's a mistake. Giving the checkbook to a layman, pastor, pastor's wife, or family member, oh boy, is that ever a mistake. No purchase order system, that's a mistake. No missions program emphasis, that's a mistake. And no reports. Well, there it is. Whew, a little winded today, but we'll be okay. God bless you. Join me every week, Friday, 3 o'clock Central Time, Ministry Moments. It's a pleasure to be able to be alive and then do something to help the cause of Christ. I hope this helped you. And by the way, subscribe. We got to get up to 500. We're close to it. Got to get up there. So tell your friends about it. I'm not going to preach a sermon every week, but I will give you some practical application. God bless you. See you next Friday.